All right, let's see. We have audio. We have general sense of liveness. And unfortunately, we do not have a camera because my camera is being taken up by this lovely little iPad drawing screen. And hopefully we'll be doing some architecture and system design using that. I just gotta get the tweet out, and we are live with system design and architecture for a small SaaS product idea. Yeah, I'm not gonna claim it's a product because it has not been built. It's an idea. So I guess this will be a little bit more high level. Sweet. And if you show up, say something in the chat. So let's see what we can come up with. So let's not try to name the product quite yet. I have a few names in the hopper, but I have no idea if I have the time to build this product. So I might as well start softly and just call it simple photo site. That's not all there is to it, but it's a lot of what there is to it. So what different types of things are we dealing with here? We are dealing with some groups of people. We're dealing with some, let's call them interfaces, points where people get to interact with the system in some way, or where the system interacts back at them. Let me know if there's anything limiting the audio or whatever, but it looks fine from my end. And then the most vague point, I would say systems and storage. So this is not a formal way of sort of designing and describing systems. I don't have formal training. I don't do that stuff. And what I do have is a bit of a background in drawing things. I have shitty handwriting, but I do know a little bit about drawing things. And mostly I'm trying to sort of describe the system in some kind of overview of fashion. So I've been thinking about the system for a bit. So it's not a new design for me. I've been thinking about it. So we have, there's one person here and their family. So that's the publisher or the family. We have a whole crowd of folks. which are the subscribers. So what is this system I'm looking at building? The general idea is I want to be able to publish personal pictures, videos, and writing to the multitude of people around me. So family, friends, relatives, they all care about my daughter growing up, for example, and some want to follow it closely, some don't. Some want to occasionally check in, some don't. But they're all spread across a multitude of different groups and messaging systems. And as such, very, very hard to effectively send out updates to all of them in a sane way. And I don't want to post on social media. I don't want to post about my daughter on social media. I think that should be her call, and I don't actually want to spend any time on sort of Facebook, which is, I guess, the most familial social media. So I was thinking there might be a product here, because this is something I definitely need. And I definitely got a few responses from people saying, this is something I would also like to have, or this is something I've implemented with simple tools, which sort of confirms that this is something people want and need, or could be interested in. Yeah, so this would be, let's call them relatives, just to sort of distinguish them in the domain. Now, what different ways do I want to offer for someone publishing? Well, we would want, so web publishing. Oh, that's bad centering. This is terrible. Let's just call it web publishing. It would be a UI, but I don't think that needs to be stated, actually. And I also want a simple way of getting things into... Hey, I need to sleep. And I actually want a way to easily post to this. And I think the easiest way that doesn't involve me building sort of a native app is using an existing messaging solution. And I know Telegram works, and I know it's easy to work with because I built the Noted application. So I would use hold on. That's a terrible drawing. That's what I want. So I want to be able to do posting via Telegram, where you could send a picture, you could send text, you could send video to a Telegram bot, and it would publish it. Then there's the ways that so that the relatives could actually access this material, and that would be website private. Could have called it a private website, that would also have been good. Let me know if there's anything that's unclear, or like if the visibility is bad, because I have a hard time seeing exactly how the video is coming across. It looks like it should be okay from my end. And then I would also say, so there will be some need for notification. Some people want to follow it actively, or know whenever something changes. So email. Arguably, you could do a publishing flow via email, but I have never felt the need. And do say hi in the chat and let me know if you have any questions. I will keep an eye that corner of my screen. So do the polite thing and say hi so I know that people are watching. Let me know if there's anything you were wondering about. All right. So that's the people and that's the interfaces I want to offer. Then there's the systems. And this is sort of potentially a bit like this. You could shove anything in there. I have a few concerns around the storage, which are fairly specific things. Let's make them red because it's so critical. So I would prefer to store files in an S3 compatible, so object storage. And why would I want that when I generally don't want anything to go? Thanks, need to sleep. Good to know. I'm typically not the most cloud hype person, but object stores are actually a very opinionated way of storing files, and they also provide you with some very good properties with regards to sort of redundancy, resiliency, so you don't easily lose files, and storing files reliably and at scale is a fairly painful endeavor in my book. It's not something I would want to maintain myself mostly. So my thinking is to use an S3 object storage. For the database, I would use SQLite, and I would make it multi-tenant. So what does that mean? We can unpack that a bit, see how far we get. But yeah, this would be a whole number of databases spanning off into the distance. Yeah, and that would be that. So let's see if we can fill out the systems part as well. And this, of course, this is a very high level sketch of what we're up to. And I think we can go further and break down different aspects and take different perspectives on what we're doing. But I think most of this system can be handled by, so let's make a bird style creature here. By a Phoenix app. Like I'm invested in Elixir and that ecosystem, and this makes sense. It's just a web application. There's nothing particularly novel about it in that way. And I know for a fact that this can talk well to Telegram, it can provide a website, that sort of thing. We would probably, and this is a bit of a maybe, we would probably want to serve some things via CDN, because we're doing a website and websites can be very effectively provided by CDN, and then you can just fall through the CDN to your origin whenever. So yeah, Fastly was down recently. That's one of the risks of working with CDNs, I guess. And then there's another sort of question mark where I haven't got a firm opinion yet, which is video conversion. So whenever someone posts a video to a system like this, you will always essentially need to process it. And doing that on the same machine that you're serving web requests from is usually a recipe for making web requests slow whenever there's a video in progress, because like video conversion will consume all your CPU if you let it. So let's actually draw some lines to connect these up. So we have the publisher side who's using these. And we have the subscriber side who's using, so this one is a little bit of a both ways. And this one is that. And the web publishing, so that's essentially the admin backend sort of experience for whoever's publishing on this solution platform. And the Telegram posting would also go via the Phoenix app. The website would be CDN or Phoenix app. And the Phoenix app would also be responsible for the email. And the only thing that would target the video conversion is the actual Phoenix app. It would not go directly. Now, Phoenix app would be talking to the S3 object storage. The CDN would probably be talking to the object storage. The Phoenix app would be talking to the SQLite database. Hey, Andres. Yeah, whiteboarding on stream. Maybe I should have picked a different background color just to get away from the whiteboard feeling. Drawn black. Can probably do that in this. Okay, so is there a particular thing you would like me to break down more than any of the others in how I'm thinking about building this application? I think the most nuanced stuff happens around so the publisher and their data in the Phoenix application and how that's kept sort of separate with multi-tenancy from other customers. So my thinking is not that this is a thing that you, a singular person, would put on your server and run. This is something I would set up and you could sign up, pay a monthly fee, and have the safety of knowing like, okay, there's a single entity handling your data and they're in the EU, so you can just GDPR the heck out of me if you want to get rid of the data. Thumbbar. So Frank Midigo said, I once used Thumbbar to do resizing cropping for images. Worked so well. Yeah, resizing cropping is sometimes a bit challenging. A resizing I find fairly straightforward. Stephen Buzzy says, are you thinking of signed client to S3 uploads or server to S3? So for the Telegram thing, that requires me to talk my application to pull the image and pass it on to S3. But for the web publishing, I would probably sign and sign the uploads directly to S3 because that saves a bit of work, of processing work and stuff. It depends. If I want to do a bunch of thumbnails as well, then I would need to do those. Hello, Marcello. So yeah, I've been thinking towards S3 storage. The thing is, I don't see this as a system that would have very intense use patterns, which means I don't actually have to worry that much about like hilarious amounts of posting going on. That would probably be sort of a sign of abuse. No, but rather I might do signed S3 uploads and then pull down a thumbnail and some of that. a little bit undecided. But yeah, let's see. Telegram posting. Yeah. There are a few things I would like to support. Let's actually look at a little bit at feature set. So fatter publisher features. So they should be able to post images, one or many, text with text, video, one or many, with text. Potentially this would just be like mix and match, post what you will. And notifying followers. This is sort of an implicit feature because I don't think it's really something you would turn off or on. It just would. Inviting, what did we call them? Subscribers, relatives, inviting relatives. Let's call them relatives. So let's get our domain words. It doesn't have to be relatives. It could be friends, but I need one word, not a sort of mishmash of terms. So inviting relatives, and that raises the question, how? Notifying relatives also, how? So the posting system has a few interesting nuanced things. The notification system probably has a little bit more, to be fair. Or rather, posting images, text, and video is a fairly common problem. Yeah, Andreas is saying email, SMS, and fax. Fax would be a sweet one. I'm not doing fax. It's probably an Erlang library for it though. So typically I would say I would want, since we're not doing native apps for this product, at least not initially, I would try web notifications as one option. I think that could actually work when you're not badgering someone to turn them on and you're actually... So I have web notifications on for exactly one service. My calendar. Google Calendar. Because it makes sense in that context. When sort of the Washington Post or Guardian Times or whatever newspaper wants to be able to notify me, no, not interested. But when an application actually wants to offer that feature and I want to turn on that feature and they ask, that's a perfectly fine way of using web notifications. So it would be web notifications, and then it would be email, and then passive, let's call it passive RSS. So RSS via personal link. So this is Andreas is saying I want to have notifications from Microsoft Teams, but it never gives me them. If you're using the app, like the Electron app on Linux, is terrible. Yeah. But yeah, so there will be a few sort of personal links and personal keys for being able to, because we want to be, as a publisher, we want to be able to remove someone from being able to access our stuff. And so we can't have sort of a one person RSS feed unless we want to kick everyone off of the RSS whenever we're booting someone out. All right, inviting relatives, how? My answer to that is going to be, we're going to be opinionated and we're going to say everything goes through email. Now, I don't think there's much more we need to cover for publisher features right now. Let's see. So let's actually look at subscriber features. I also want to be clear, I do not have a super detailed plan for what we're going to be able to cover during this session. It's just going to be whatever we get through. It will probably not be everything. Everything is unbounded. So, yeah. So feel free to ask any questions around your thinking here. But what I want subscribers to be able to do is choose engagement level. So maybe they want instant, or they want daily, weekly, or none/manual. And I would say all of these, or rather, these would be email digest. And this would be choose email notification. I want minimal sign-in. And I would, so my thinking is email magic links. This is one of the problems with drawing things. You end up overlapping a lot. And those would be single use. And this would feed into my thinking is this would feed into how we do notifications as well. So when you get notifications about a new post, that link could actually be signed already. So when you click this new image, every link in that email would be initially signed for one login for you, which would mean whenever you're going to look at the site because you get notified, you would get logged in. And as long as you're logged in, it will not log you out if you reuse the link, but the link cannot magically re-log you in forever. It would only work for a single time. And then if you wanted to just visit the page and look at the things, that would be That would mean you need to enter your email, and unless you're still logged in, you would have to enter your email and you would get a magic link for signing in. This is partly just to avoid managing passwords, but also to try to make things like straightforward and magical, for like keeping friction low, to make sure that people find it comfortable and neat to actually access and interact with, watch these pictures and videos, and keep in touch with relatives. Like, I feel fairly strongly about making this accessible, because I know that a lot of the challenge is reaching out to less tech savvy folks when you set up something weird and custom. And this would be, ideally, this would just feel like a website that occasionally asks you to sign in using your email. Actually, one thing here, I want to offer so reaction options. So what does that mean? You get to choose what kind of responses you can receive. So you can off on for reactions. So like love, laugh, thumb, like the normal sort of reaction bar approach, or arbitrary emoji, I don't know. And then comments, but private. So the comment would only reach the people that own the publishing side. Yeah, Steven, magic links are awesome. Except for, so I had this experience with Slack when I was using a secondary domain for some Slack accounts, and it was on a mail redirect, and that mail redirect was slow. So I had a delay for like 3 to 5 minutes to receive my magic link every time I wanted to set that Slack up. That was excruciating, because I keep forgetting that I was doing the damn thing. So while email is fast, magic links are good, and none of this is sort of performance critical. This system is not. The data inside it is sensitive, but it's not sort of performance critical. It's not. So uptime and accessing it is not sensitive, or that's not the idea, at least. But one of the problems with social networks in my book is that sort of your in-laws get to talk to your friends about whatever you're posting. And it can lead to weird things where your different contexts don't really get along or can't behave properly, and you don't want to sort of moderate your family and friends, but it works quite well if they're not unnecessarily introduced to one another. Yeah, that's something that Facebook really hasn't solved to me. Or I guess you could target different groups, but also most of the people I want to talk to are not on Facebook, thankfully. So offering comments where, like, okay, I posted a cute picture of my kid, I'm happy to hear in that context, like, oh, that's so sweet, or oh, she's grown so much, or any sort of response, because that's nice. I like people saying nice things about my kid or my plants or whatever I'm sharing, but I don't need anyone else to see it. And I also want to offer reactions, because that's a low friction way of saying I saw this, and sort of emoting at it, but not necessarily spending all the effort of typing something up when all you want to say is neat or cool or haha. And reactions sort of solve that. So I want to offer those, but not everyone wants them, and I think it's decent to have it as an option. So subscribers don't have to do much, but when they sign up, they get to choose what sort of updates they want, like what level of updating they want, because I don't want to spam people. And that would be essentially it for them. Let's see. Yeah, so we can note here video processing, and this thumbnailing, so resizing, cropping, that sort of thing. So this is a fairly simple feature set in some ways. Oh, actually, viewing content, and this would be, yeah, we have this posting content. That's fairly important part of this. Is there any particular thing you guys want me to dive into my thinking on? Guess I'm prone towards the SQLite, or the sort of yeah. So sites. Let's talk about sites. So publisher site. Ah, that's terrible pressure I put there. That's very bold. So what is this site they're getting if they pay for this? So let's say we're at domain.com slash my site, your own URL. Support custom domains. That's something I would want at some point, maybe not at the start necessarily. A single site, multiple publishers, and multiple subscribers. So this is typically how I think through things. Sometimes I end up with flowcharts. Ooh, low battery. This is perfect. Good timing. Sometimes I end up doing flowcharts. Sometimes I end up doing mapping things out, and sometimes it's just bulleted lists. I think a mix of it all helps think through the problem. Sometimes I revisit a particular part because it's tricky with a different sort of mapping approach. Let's see. Separate data storage. Easy. GDPR compliance. So this is something you absolutely cannot ignore these days. At least if you're building a product in Europe. And I think thinking about that up front is not just, that's not sort of over engineering, that's sound planning. And it also means that you're probably taking your users' concerns early on. So what the GDPR mostly says about like storing user data is that you have to be able to hand it over to them in a machine readable format, useful to sort of standard industry tools, without too much work, and you have to be able to remove all of it. Yeah. Saying, please no spread data over world. Yeah, and that's where a CDN can actually get a little bit tricky. But as long as you're saying clearly what you're going to be doing with it, you might be okay. You may also be in trouble because it's a US business and you're not really legally capable of handing over control of personal data to a US business. A little bit of that is unclear, and I am not a lawyer. What I would say is strive for the spirit of the law, and you won't go too far astray, and then talk to a lawyer. And they will tell you that the sky is falling. The sky will probably not fall. I actually have lawyers in my audience, I know that. And I appreciate that that's a complicated job. I tend to be, I'm not that precious about the legalese generally, but I do want to handle everything in the spirit of the law, because I think the spirit of the GDPR is a good spirit to comply with. And at some point you will have to comply with the law either way. So making it easy, complete removal, because all of the content someone would put into the system would very likely be personal in nature. So it's a lot of personal data. And easy export. So my goal with regards to that is that I would take the SQLite database for that customer and give it to them. And I would take their folder, I know they're technically not folders, but their key space on S3, and I would dump that, zip it up, and like, here's your data. If I have to select across a bunch of things and fill with sort of stitching it together, that's much more complicated. And SQLite is a nice enough format to just send to someone. Machine readable, right? At some point you might actually provide a nice little viewer for them or something. That's nice to do for an export, but it's not legally required. So this has already given me sort of a clarity on a bunch of things, a bunch of concerns we need to deal with. The things I find most sort of challenging or annoying here is I'll put a little warning here by the multi-tenancy, because I know that's perfectly doable. Actually, Steven, I think you have decent experience working on that, and I have made a blog post myself about it. The Telegram I'm not concerned at all about. Email, that's something where I will have to find a provider that I like, that is not either I can't send sensitive data over it, or I need to have one that's either EU based or otherwise compliant. CDN has similar problems, and I might skip a CDN in the early days because it does help, but rendering a basic website is not that heavy and could easily be served from a central server. Video conversion, also one of these. Like, I know there are complexities there. And it has similar challenges with, like, well, is it a US business? What does that mean legally? Blah, 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 blah. Do I just shove FFmpeg onto a separate server and have that do all the work? Maybe. That might be the easiest one. Or that might be the most pragmatic approach, honestly. But it's annoying. Dealing with video is always annoying, and there's a bunch of steps to it, sort of taking the raw video, turning it into a web-friendly video, pulling thumbnails from it, shipping those to the right place, making sure the system knows when it's done, not publishing before the video is actually viewable. Yeah, a bunch of complexities there. So, actually, hosting is something I might as well consider. And the swipey swipe is a little bit tricky right now. I wonder if this iPad is getting tired. So let's do hosting in blue. My thinking, since we're doing SQLite, actually, one thing to note, SQLite as a file. So SQLite databases are a file on your file system. And I would replicate it to S3 using Lightstream. So that's a way of backing it up, and also a way of in that way I could just dump the folder on S3 and get images and the database for a particular customer. But I would probably use standard VPSs, or possibly even a physical server. Why a physical server? Because I'm a hipster and I want to get back to the good old days, I guess. Probably more likely I would do VPSs, but then again, I would want a few cores, I would want decent performance. So I'm not sure. I should have charged this. So I didn't exactly plan on drawing when I got up this morning. I think it's burning quite a bit extra data just pushing the HDMI and doing this much drawing for now. But yeah, we would want a video. Let's assume we want to handle the video conversion ourselves. Then we want a video processing server. I wouldn't typically recommend doing the video processing yourself. It's perfectly doable, but it's also really annoying, and there are good solutions that do that, and it's very reasonably scaled. You can absolutely scale video conversion in a very sort of independent way, horizontally. And that's annoying to do on your own. So you might as well use a service for it. But I'm not sure if there are services that are appropriate for me to use if I want to be very, very restrictive about where I put the data. Anyway, let's assume we want a video processing server. That might be a VPS or dedicated. So this is for the backend. Let's call it the backend app. I would look at providers such as Hetzner. Not a sponsor. Don't have any sponsors currently. I like Linode. So if you're building something outside of, so if you're building something where you don't mind US controlled companies, then Linode is a perfectly good approach. I like their UI better than any of the large cloud platforms. I could say not AWS, Azure, or GCP. That's at least my plan if I'm gonna do it. That's not necessarily a sort of technical requirement of the platform, but more in my opinions. It does, if you stick to a single VPS or a few VPSs, you don't actually have much need for sort of load balancing or that kind of thing. Yeah, so I would like to start digging into what I think the code structure would be, or rather the system structure and how it would be built out. But honestly, one thing, don't have time. There's 6 minutes left of the stream. But also, what I would do to get this to an MVP as fast as possible is take my noted project, and then I would rip out the data model and replace most of the data model. But everything else that I've built there is very in line with what I'm thinking here. It would be a simple way to render some, essentially your everyday Instagram feed, and a publishing UI that could be fairly basic. And then there's some RSS, there's some notifications, there's some gathering up what has happened over the day and sending a digest. There's a bunch of code to write, but the system doesn't have to be particularly complex. And taking in sort of events like, oh, the video is done processing and reacting to that is very, very achievable with Phoenix. So yeah, this has been a little bit about a little bit of a show of how I typically sit down and hash out and just jot down what I'm thinking for building something. And I've identified a few challenging areas right now. Very little of this challenge is code. It's much more about figuring out sort of what can I use, what do I want to reinvent, or what do I want to use, avoid using the big providers. So to be very clear, if I was just going with whatever providers I'm familiar with, I would probably do email via Postmark. I'd use Cloudflare as a CDN. I would probably look at Mux for video conversion. I haven't worked with them, but I've heard good things. And I would probably use S3 or Linode object storage. But because I'm planning on trying to be very EU compliant, because I think that's a high base level to set it at, I would have to look at European options for all of these that are not controlled by US companies, potentially. I should probably talk to a lawyer, actually, and just figure out how concerned I should be about that if I'm going to build it. Most of that stuff is not a blocker. So I don't need the email to start building this thing. I don't need the CDN until later. Video conversion I could handle myself. And then there's like implementing the SQLite multi-tenancy is a finicky little thing. Or multi-tenancy overall is a little bit finicky, as I'm sure Steven can attest to. But it's also very doable. So yeah, if there's anything in this that you're wondering about, feel free to reach out about that. And if there's anything in here that you would like to see me dive deeper into, let me know, and I might do a live stream specifically on that. Or I might just do a live stream where I take noted and try to rip as much of it out as possible and just switch it over to doing this as a new project. Just forking noted. But yeah, that'll be it for now. It was nice to sit and draw for a little bit. Maybe I should have had a drink of water. I'm a little bit hoarse by now. So I guess thanks for watching. Bye. And have a good weekend. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if that's your thing. And otherwise, you find my stuff at underu.io. YouTube is not that important. You can just use the web. Take care. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.